Hello and welcome to the third generation AMD Ryzen processor briefing. My name is Robert Halleck. I lead technical marketing for the processor division at AMD, and I'm just unbelievably excited to tell you about these third generation Ryzen CPUs. You know, gamers really demand performance in the form of IPC and clock speed and cache and cores, and that is exactly what we're delivering in abundance in these processors. And it's because the trends demand that. There are 2.3 billion gamers globally generating over 2 million hours of content on Twitch. And people are increasingly not just playing PCs, but watching PCs being played as well. And that requires additional compute performance above and beyond simply playing the game. And then those gamers are also increasingly creators as well. Many people bring their work home or they create on the side and play games as well. And so they need a computer that is uniquely powerful to handle both the gaming and the content creation. So that is what third generation Ryzen processors are designed to answer. And we're trying to deliver the ultimate user experience. And that's not just the performance of the processor. It's also the platform that it goes into, the motherboard, the premium materials, the features, the quality. And then on top of that, a great experience is also increasingly about the software as well. And that's true of both graphics cards and processors, having good firmware, good BIOSes, good companion tools that run in Windows. All of these are part of the new complete experience that an enthusiast expects. So all of these ideas, these principles are being invested in the third gen Ryzen family, which you see here before you, spanning from $199 US with the Ryzen 5 3600X, all the way up to $499 US with the flagship Ryzen 9 3900X. And at 5 very classic and popular price segments in the enthusiast market, we have a third generation Ryzen processor with more cores, more cache, more technology, better power efficiency than what the competitor is providing. And it's a really, really nice experience for a gamer, and I am myself one, so I know that for a fact. These are beautiful gaming processors, and so I want to share with you what these processors are capable of segment by segment. So right off the bat, I want to talk about the ingredients that make each one of these processors so competitive in their space. And everything starts in gaming with single thread performance. How much work can a single processor core do? Many games, especially older games running DirectX 9, they run on 1 or 2 threads in the CPU, and so how much work can churn through a single processor thread really matters. But more broadly, higher single thread performance lifts all sails. If every core on that processor can do more work for every megahertz that it has, every application gets a little bit better. So if we compare last year's flagship Ryzen 7 2700X, even our entry-level Ryzen 5 3600 offers nearly 10% more single-thread performance, all the way up to 21% more with the new flagship Ryzen 9 3900X. And that just makes every workload better. It makes application launches better, games better, content creation better. So that is a key ingredient of third-gen Ryzen. The harmony between hardware and software has never been more important. The operating system plays a huge role in how well both the GPU and the CPU performs. So we're very, very excited to announce that the Windows 10 May 2019 update, which is rolling out to users now, has been optimized for the Zen 2 core and Zen as well. And I'll talk to you about both optimizations. So the first is called topology awareness. Where the cores are relative to the level 3 cache plays a big impact on the overall performance of the processor. And if the operating system understands where the cores are and where the cache are, or the cache is, it's possible to constrain a certain number of threads to one CCX in our case, or one cluster of 4 cores. And that improves performance because the cores have direct level 3 cache access to the nearby cache, the neighboring cache. And that is a big performance improvement, and I'll show you that in a moment. The other thing that's important, and this is specifically for third-gen Ryzen processors, is called CPPC2. And that is a clock speed selection interface that's available in UEFI firmwares. So that's the new standard for BIOSes on PC. And if we look at previous Windows builds, if we wanted to ramp from low clock speed to high clock speed, or pick any new clock speed at all, it took about 30 milliseconds. But with CPPC2, it now only takes 1 to 2 milliseconds. So very bursty workloads that take you out of idle and return to idle very quickly, things like web page rendering, web browsing, and application launches, get a little bit faster as a result of this. So topology awareness is for all Ryzen processors, first, second, and third generation, whereas CPPC2 is just for the new third generation Ryzen processors. Now let's take a look at the performance. In very CPU sensitive tasks like Rocket League at 1080p low, CSGO might be another great example. That topology awareness, being able to keep a thread next to the cache contents of the processor, imparts up to 15% additional performance just from a scheduler tweak. And if we look at PC Mark 10 app launch speed, we're getting about 6% faster application launch performance. So we're really, really thrilled to announce that Windows 10 2019 update has specific scheduler optimizations for Ryzen processors, and that's a testament to the technical partnership between Microsoft and AMD. And that's just another ingredient in addition to single thread performance that lifts almost all workloads to be faster and more efficient. The last key ingredient is what we're calling AMD Game Cache. So you may have heard from Mark Papermaster or Lisa Su that third generation Ryzen processors feature a L3 cache that is twice as large as second generation Ryzen processors. We did that because we know that cache performance plays a huge role in the overall gaming performance of the PC. Memory latency also plays a huge role in the overall performance of a PC when it comes to gaming. So what if it was possible to accelerate gaming by increasing the size of the L3 cache? That's what we've done. But to understand this, we first need to look at memory speed. So what you see here in the white bars is the performance uplift of going from DDR4 2667 to DDR4 3600. That's about 14 nanoseconds less memory latency as a result of overclocking. Pretty good, pretty good. You get a nice improvement in the overall gaming experience of about 8%. But as a result of doubling the cache size on second or third gen Ryzen processors, the overall performance increase can actually be up to 21%. Another way of putting that is that double cache size is worth twice the performance of faster memory, reflecting the fact that we're simply keeping data on chip rather than going to remote memory. And that is the most efficient way to improve performance on the third generation Ryzen processor with the Zen 2 architecture. So if going from DDR4 2667 to 3600 was worth about 8%, but the cache is worth up to 20%, then the effective latency reduction of doubling the cache is 33 nanoseconds. So that's 30 plus nanoseconds off of your memory latency and 21% higher gaming performance thanks to AMD Game Cache. We're so confident in what this capability can impart to the overall gaming experience that we have given it a brand, and we want all gamers, low experience gamers, high experience gamers, gamers who are just getting into the market, we need them to understand how important this cache size is to our processor and our overall gaming performance. So that's why we gave it a name. Okay, so those are three of the key ingredients that make third-gen Ryzen processors so good. It's single-thread performance, it's that harmony with the operating system, and that's the doubled cache size of L3, which reduces memory latency and directly improves gaming. And so we're introducing a new segment at the very top of our stack. The Ryzen 9 3900X is the flagship part with 12 cores, 24 threads, boost clock speeds up to 4.6 gigahertz, and an absolutely massive 70 megabytes of game cache. And the most incredible thing about this is that we're fitting 12 cores into a thermal envelope of just 105 watts TDP, which is not that dissimilar from what gamers used to know from 6-core or 8-core processors. But thanks to the power efficiency of 7 nanometer, we can pack all of this technology into just 105 watts. And the gaming experience is incredible. You see here, Battle of the Titan, 2 flagship gaming processors at 1080p at the $500 price point, and the gaming experience is comparable. We win some, we lose some, but what you see is that the Ryzen 9 3900X is delivering an absolutely elite, unquestionable level of 1080p gaming experience. And that's important because, frankly, a plurality of the market plays at 1080p. But of course, a processor like this demands more performance, more pixels, and we expect many gamers to level up to 1440p on a processor like this. But even at 1080p, the experience is absolutely wonderful. With 12 cores and 24 threads at the same price that the competitor gives you for 8 cores and 16 threads, it should be no surprise that the Ryzen 9 3900X offers absolutely crushing content creation performance. With professional tools like Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve, or Cinema 4D rendering with Cinebench R20, this processor is not just a gaming beast, but a content creation monster. This is the ultimate performance for ultimate users, and that is true of both gaming and content creation. But I did mention that 7 nanometer is incredibly efficient, and I'm so pleased to show you this data. The Ryzen 9 3900X is up to 58% more efficient than the 9900K. And with 12 cores versus 8, we're actually drawing less power at the wall. So 15 watts less at the wall with 50% more cores than what the competitor is giving you. So you get that equivalent gaming experience, you get a significant uplift in in content creation performance, but at lower power. So the destiny of AMD now is that we're faster, cooler, quieter, more efficient than any other processor on the market. And if you add it all up, that content creation performance, the average weighs in at 47%. That is just incredible content creation leadership for people who need to stream, encode, and render. And that gaming performance, 1080p, comparable. We'll be upfront about that. Of course, as you step up to 1440p, that experience will get even better from a flagship processor like this. And I did mention energy efficiency thanks to Zen 2 and 7 nanometer, nearly 60% better performance per watt. And we are the first and only solution in the gaming market to offer PCI Express 4.0, which is just a beautiful, beautiful experience for gamers who want the latest, most future-proof technology that the market has available. Okay, so that was a 12-core. And if we come into the 8-core market, we have the Ryzen 7 3800X. This is our flagship 8-core CPU with a boost clock of up to 4.5 gigahertz. And now we have one CPU die, which means 36 megabyte of game cache, still at that 105 watt TDP. And the gaming experience, again, at 1080p looks great versus the 9700K. This is a very comparable gaming experience that can make a really nice start for any gaming PC for an enthusiast. High-end GPUs, big monitors, lots of RAM. This is a really, really nice processor at $399. And of course, because we have that core count and thread count advantage, something that AMD with the Ryzen family has always brought to the table, always giving you more for your money. At $399, we just run away with the performance of the content creation. Again, in things like DaVinci Resolve, or Pavre ray tracing, or in Cinema 4D rendering with Cinebench R20. The competitor is only offering 8 cores and 8 threads in this space for the same $400, and we're offering 8 cores and 16 threads. So you get more performance and more for your money, and that's the way it should be. And again, performance per watt is in AMD's favor. The Ryzen 7 3800X is 30% more efficient than the 9700K. Again, demonstrating how good 7 nanometer and the Zen 2 core really is at delivering that performance at a power-sipping envelope. And when you put it all together, the Ryzen 7 3800X story is very much like the Ryzen 9 3900X story. More creator performance, comparable gaming performance to the competition, and more energy efficiency with those unique technologies that you can't get anywhere else. All for $399. Now, one part we haven't talked a lot about is the Ryzen 7 3700X. This is our 65-watt TDP part, our most efficient Ryzen processor in the Ryzen 7 space. And you see that energy efficiency versus the 9700K is even greater on this part. It's 56% more efficient now and at lower wall power. So again, the destiny of AMD in 2019 is more performance, more efficiency, and more value to the customer. It's everything that a gamer could want. But it gets a little more nuanced than that. If we put both the processors I just talked about, the 9700K versus the 3700X, through a heavy multi-threaded workload like Cinebench R20 NT, and then we take the temperature of the heat sinks on both solutions, we see that the 3700X also offers lower temperature. So if you're a user, you care about single-thread performance, multi-thread performance, cool, quiet, better performance, better efficiency, everything is in AMD's favor. AMD is leading in every one of these categories in 2019 with the third generation Ryzen CPU. So if you're an enthusiast, everything that you could possibly want to buy in a gaming processor comes from AMD. And then I would be remiss, of course, if I did not mention Ryzen 5 3600X. This is a $249 CPU, and the reality is that most customers in the PC market buy processors in the Ryzen 5 space. So with 6 cores and 12 threads and a boost clock up to 4.4 gigahertz and a 95-watt TDP, this is a killer gaming processor for a whole lot of people. And this is an ideal product for someone building a gaming rig under $1,000. And I want to show you what that gaming might look like. It is probably one of our most competitive parts. The Ryzen 5 3600X just kills it at 1080p gaming for $250, and the frame rates are hundreds and hundreds in latest games like CSGO and Rocket League and Call of Duty Black Ops. It's just a beautiful gaming processor. Now, that content creation performance that you've seen from Ryzen 9, Ryzen 7, still holds true in the Ryzen 5 space. Just crushing content creation leadership because we offer you more cores and more threads than the other guy for the same price. A customer wants value, and it doesn't matter if they're spending $500 or $250. Nobody wants to feel like they got a bad deal. So with Ryzen 5 processors at $250, you get more for your money, and that is the way that it should be. And again, that energy efficiency story is in Ryzen 5's favor, up to 22% more performance per watt than Core i5 processors. So again, putting it together, creator performance, AMD's favor. Energy efficiency, AMD's favor. Technologies, AMD has more and more unique technologies than the other guy. And that 1080p gaming experience is fantastic. Now, we have one more surprise for you. We went through the 12-core, we went through the 8-core, and we went through the 6-core, but there is one more. Thanks to AMD's chiplet technology, this big bet that we made starting 4 or 5 years ago, and that big bet on 7-nanometer technology, we're able to offer you a core count density that nobody else is offering in a mainstream CPU socket. So I'm really excited to announce that the AMD Ryzen 9 3950X is the world's very first 16-core gaming CPU in a mainstream processor socket. Let me repeat that. It is a 16-core gaming CPU in a mainstream processor socket, not an HDDT socket like everybody is expecting from a chip with this many cores. And the clock speed is the highest in the 3rd-gen Ryzen family, 4.7 gigahertz boost. So that means our 16-core gaming CPU is also our fastest, best gaming processor. And that really reflects how awesome Zen 2 and 7-nanometer technology is. And it has an absolutely massive 72 megabytes total cache, owing to the fact that, as you can see on the left, there are 2 CPU dies containing 8 cores each. Now, the most startling thing about this Ryzen 9 3950X is that you get the 16 cores and our highest boost clock and the most amount of cache for just 105 watts TDP. That is nearly 60% less than any other 12 or 16 core product in the market today. And that is how efficient Zen 2 and 7 nanometer really is for AMD. We can fit all of this into the same old socket AM4 that you know and love at the same old thermal envelopes that all of the coolers in the market today are expecting. So you will see this product enter into the market in September for $749. And considering the prices of other 16-core products on the market today, this is an absolute bargain, but that is no different from any other Ryzen processor in the 3rd gen Ryzen family. Now, I did mention AM4 is the socket of choice for all of these 3rd gen Ryzen CPUs, and it's easy to see why. There are over 150 motherboards in the market that will support all of these CPUs. That socket has grown over time, supporting Zen, Zen Plus, Zen 2, and even further back in time with our excavator architecture. And it's highly, highly customizable with software tools like Ryzen Master and some of the new features we're bringing to the table in our BIOS. Now, X570 is the very latest chipset for socket AM4. It enables PCI Express Gen 4 on the chipset side, and it is optimized for 3rd gen Ryzen CPUs, but of course you can plug many other generations of Ryzen CPU into this as well. And if you go to AMD.com, you'll be able to see the full compatibility matrix for this chipset. But the key takeaway of this platform is that we offer more ports, more lanes, and more bandwidth than any other enthusiast platform on the market today. So if you're a user and you want power efficiency, performance, and the most connectivity, AMD X570 with a 3rd gen AMD Ryzen processor is the way to go. Now, I did mention at the start of my presentation that the software experience was just as important as the performance. And what we've done for overclockers is built this all-new menu called AMD CBS, or Common BIOS Settings. And the AMD CBS menu is found in every AMD X570 chipset. And we've made it a one-stop shop for anything overclocking related, voltage related, timing related. So if you want to tinker with the memory or the CPU or the Infinity Fabric, every motherboard will have this menu. And more importantly, it is human readable. I have personally worked with our BIOS engineers to ensure that help text is intuitive and easy to read and easy to understand, using terms that you see every day in enthusiast communities like Reddit and overclock.net and other enthusiast forums. It's really, really important to me on a personal level that if someone invests their time on an enthusiast platform like AMD X570 with a 3rd gen Ryzen CPU, and they may not be so experienced, that's okay. We want them to have a good, easy experience using terms that everybody can understand. And thanks to the optimizations that we're making in 3rd gen Ryzen processors with new memory controller, new firmware, superior motherboard designs, we're hitting an absolutely massive DDR4 5100 on many of our partner motherboards like the MSI Meg X570 Godlike. If you haven't seen this motherboard, it's just an incredible design, and DDR4 5100 is amongst the highest memory speeds you can achieve in the market today. And that really is a magical thing that the 3rd gen Ryzen CPU with AMD X570 is accomplishing. So congratulations to MSI on such a wonderful motherboard design. And I think you're really going to be excited by the things that we're accomplishing with the motherboards and 3rd gen Ryzen CPU. But not every user wants to dig into the BIOS. Not every user wants to get really, really deep into tinkering. So we do have that Ryzen Master tool, which every day continues to have more and more advanced features if you want them. And the new version of AMD Ryzen Master gives you full control over every memory timing that you would have access to in a BIOS. And you can import and export memory profiles. So if you have a friend who has the same memory kit as you, and maybe he has a really nice overclock and a really nice timing profile, and you want that for your system, he can export it, give it to you, and you can load it into Ryzen Master and go to town. We also have a new feature called Precision Boost Overdrive with automatic overclock, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And most importantly, you'll be able to see the active power management of the CPU. Ryzen has very, very sophisticated power management that doesn't always use clock speed adjustment. sometimes we just put the core to sleep, and we want you to be able to see that and understand how our CPU works. So you'll be able to see that in the new Ryzen Master as well. Precision Boost Overdrive. This is a feature we debuted for second gen Ryzen Threadripper CPUs, but now for the very first time, it is officially coming to Ryzen processors. And it has a new capability. You, the user, in 25 megahertz increments, can actually overclock this CPU by up to 200 megahertz. So for example, if the processor has a default boost clock of, let's say, 4.4 gigahertz, and you plug in the full 200 megahertz of auto overclocking, you are now automatically overriding the boost clock, and that would be 4.6 gigahertz boost instead. The CPU will take care of everything for you. Voltages, clock speed management, timings. The CPU will take care of all of it. Precision Boost Overdrive with automatic overclocking really is the absolute easiest way to overclock your CPU. And there are many performance dividends from doing this, but an important one for gamers who love single thread performance is that additional single thread performance. So here we're looking at the Ryzen 5 3600, which we haven't mentioned that much, and the Ryzen 5 3600X, 3700X, and 3800X. And each one with this feature is offering more single thread performance to you, which means games go faster, applications go faster, and you know what? You don't even have to tinker with it. That is just an easy way to overclock the CPU if you're not ready to jump in manually. And again, you have up to 200 megahertz of additional boost. You pick, and you can punch in any number from 0 to 200 in 25 megahertz jumps. And that is available in the BIOS and in Ryzen Master. So when we said that we want third generation Ryzen to be the ultimate user experience, I think you've seen that that's true. We have more energy efficiency than the other guy. We have more performance than the other guy. You get more cores and threads than the competition. You get unique features like Ryzen Master and PCI Express Gen 4. You get this wonderfully robust socket AM4, which has now hosted 3 different generations of Ryzen CPU. We didn't break socket compatibility. You can have those new processors in older motherboards, which is not always the case with our competition. And that performance really speaks for itself. You get a beautiful, rich, high-performance 1080p gaming experience, which again is most of the market. 50-60% of the gaming market plays there. And you know we have tons of performance on tap to scale higher into 1440p and 4K. And thanks to the density of 7 nanometer and the performance of that Zen 2 core, we're now scaling to core counts that used to be only achievable in an HEDT socket. 8, 12, or even 16 cores in a mainstream socket at very affordable prices. The third gen Ryzen processor is a marvelous, marvelous product carrying tons of state-of-the-art features, and we really do believe it is the best processor an enthusiast can buy. Thank you very much.